living longer, living healthier, living better than ever before. Welcome to Mountain Pacific's Healthy Living for Life, a weekly series that gives you the information, education, and expert insight you need to become an active participant in today's ever-changing healthcare climate. Here now is today's program host.
From wildfire destruction to the haze that fills the sky, fire season is a cause for concern on many levels. Wildfire smoke can harm our health and our homes. Are you prepared to deal with fire season this year? Welcome to Healthy Living for Life, a show dedicated to helping you do just that. I'm Sarah Medley, your host. Today we'll be talking about smoke and fire safety. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Joining me right now are Patrick McKelvey and Rocky Infanger, both with Fire Safety Montana. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us today. We're excited to have you. This is an important topic. We all know that. Rocky, I'm going to go to you first.
Okay.
So we never know when a wildfire is going to happen, that's for sure. And it's good to be prepared, and you want us prepared. So let's talk about some of the planning folks like me and others can do to protect ourselves against a wildfire. So as far as evacuation plans, how do I get started?
So one of the best ways is to determine where it is you want to go in the event that that happens, what you need to take with you, your routes to get there, whether you have a primary route, a secondary route. Sometimes this happens at night in smoke where you can't see. You need to be prepared to leave your house in more than one way, just depending on how things are going. So determining what that plan is, where it is you want to go, how you want to get there, and then practicing that plan. So it becomes second nature to you. The more you practice, the easier things become. So, you can practice in the daytime and practice it at night. And it just becomes easier and easier. But your plan shouldn't really change except if the situation dictates. But, you should always have a location you plan on going to and ways to get there. And then you practice that.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you really need to plan how to get out of your home, and then you need to plan how to get from your home to a safe place.
Correct.
So really a two-part thing, right?
Yes, depending on how things are coming at you, may determine which way, how you're going to get out of your house, what route you'll take to your location and stuff. So yeah, it's a lot of planning. It seems pretty simple when you just say an evacuation plan, but there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, and as I'm thinking about this, you also need to be prepared to have your family members involved because you've got kids or pets or whatever, and you've got to think about them as well. Yes.
Pets are a big thing. We're seeing more and more exotic pets out there. Those are difficult things, especially if you go to a shelter. Will they even take them? But having a dog or a cat versus horses is, it all takes a lot more planning to deal with all that stuff. So there's a lot to that. Do you have, Pat, add to that?
I was going to say many of the questions that you may ask as a homeowner or individual involved in that might be answered best by your local emergency planner, whoever that may be. Your local fire department can certainly steer you in the right direction, if nothing else. And a lot of communities already have a community action plan, a community protection plan in a process. So you may check on that to see how your particular plan needs to fit into that. The other thing we always are faced with too in some of these situations now are latchkey kids that may be home after school by themselves and both the parties are working or are gone. What are those children, those kids supposed to do? Do they know the plan? Do they know to call? So there's a lot involved in in that plan. When we say planning, it isn't just getting in the car and going necessarily. And a lot of it for your neighborhood, for your region, it may already be worked out and you don't know it, and you should. And practicing, of course, as Rocky has said, is important. We've celebrated in places in news how people tried to evacuate, or they were in the middle of evacuation. You see them driving through flames and all that kind of stuff. And our question always is, why did you wait?
Yeah.
That is not the advice that anybody would give. And so your plan should be a situational awareness thing, that if you feel like it's time, there's smoke in there, excessive smoke, there's a fire nearby, you know that maybe from the radio station, but you haven't been alerted. But if your situational awareness is telling you, maybe I ought to go ahead and go, you can always come back.
Yeah.
There are a lot of stories to the opposite, and not many times, but we tend to lose more people's lives in evacuation than we do in actual wildland fire. So that route that you planned may be now a parking lot. It may be traffic jammed parking lot. And you need to think about that a little bit. So go early.
Boy, that covers a lot. We've got less than a minute left, and I am hearing you say that planning is so critical, but go to your local folks for resources and tools, and I think that is an important message, correct?
That's absolutely. And the decision to evacuate from an official standpoint, people always wonder, well, how are they going to let me know? There may not be somebody come to knock on the door and say, it's time to go. That's what we try to do with plenty of time. But I have even experienced where people fear, they were afraid to go. So go early.
Go early, that's the message. We're going to take a break right now, but when we come back, we're going to have more conversation with our fire safety experts. So don't go away. Still with us right now are Patrick McKelvey and Rocky Infinger, both with Fire Safe Montana. So thanks for staying with us. Important topic. So Rocky, I'm going to switch to you and ask you about preparation of your home in case of a fire. And I have been told that I should have photographs of what my home looks like now, so that in case of a fire, I can use it for collecting homeowners insurance. So can you talk about preparation in that regard for insurance?
Sure. Insurance is always going to come up during a wildfire. Need to make sure, if you can, grab your policy before you leave. Know where that is, or have it in a safe place, not in your home. Documenting some of your stuff can become very important. You could take some photos of the house and stuff. Some of your contents may need to be photographed also, just to help with that process. One of the biggest things you need to do is make sure you've paid your policy is up to date, and by up to date includes reviewing that policy, making sure it's where you want it to be in the event, and does it cover everything? When people think insurance, they just think, oh yeah, I'm covered by insurance. Insurance can be kind of tricky, so it's good to get with your insurance agent and review your policy. Just discuss it with him and find out, do you need to up things, or is that important anymore, or whatever it may take. But once the fire goes through, that's, again, that's part of the pre-planning, is your insurance and making sure everything's up to date. You've got photographs of stuff that may help you recover some of that. So yeah, to me, it's one of the biggest things you can do is because everybody worries about insurance in the event that happens. So take the time, call your agent, review it. take some photographs, and anything else they think is pertinent. You know, you're being in touch with your insurance agent, having their phone number in your phone for when you get evacuated. You can call them up and say, I've just been evacuated. Kind of gives them a heads up. And you can start working on things from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I happen to have done that recently and was told by our insurance that there are areas of the U.S. where they're thinking about pulling out and not covering homeowner
that's
insurance.
happening on a more frequent basis. I've done follow-up assessments on actually in the last 2 years on several homes that have been dropped. And I'm talking from personal experience. We lost a carrier that we had had for over a decade probably. And the struggle then to find another insurance carrier that will do that. And part of that is, you know, convincing them that you have done some preliminary, some mitigation work. And that even may bring on an assessment by one of their contractors, somebody who is familiar with that. So yeah, the insurance issue, you know, it used to be hurricanes, tornadoes were their big loss, but they're in the risk loss business. And there's been a number of homes, I mean, the number has gone up exponentially of structures that we're losing in fire, even as we speak. So it's got their attention, believe me.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And like the rest of us, they need to make money, so they're looking at that very carefully, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. So cutting the risk reduces the loss.
So I want to follow on a conversation we had in the previous episode about getting notification. And so we used to be, you'd get a knock on the door. But are there radio stations, or what should someone do if there's a fire nearby? How would they get accurate, up-to-date information besides calling 911, which I'm sure is not necessarily appropriate?
Yeah, 911 is for an emergency, although what an emergency is can vary with people. But signing up for notifications through your local city, county entity is very important. Now, different places have different types or are called different things, so there's no point in getting into what it's called. But they do have notification systems out there. You should be able to find out through your local agencies what those are, get signed up for them, and always update that. Yeah. If you get a new number, if you change a number or something, make sure you update that.
Absolutely.
Those notifications can get you notified. Let's say you live in Helena and you're in Great Falls, and they did that area in Helena. You could be notified in Great Falls. Now, whether you could actually do anything, but you're being notified. So that's very important, and a lot of people haven't taken advantage of that. So they should get on the website in Lewis and Clark County. It's actually the county website. Fill that information out, and then keep it updated. A lot of people lose phones, change numbers, do whatever. Yeah. I think you can have both your home and cell number on there.
Okay.
So whatever it takes, get signed up so you can get notified.
So for some of our viewers who are not in our county, I'm assuming they could go to their county websites. And disaster, is that a key word they should be looking for, or fire, evacuation?
I would look up emergency notification.
Emergency notification, that's the key. Okay, we'll make sure and post that.
They should be able to find
very good.
Their local area.
All right, well, we have a few seconds left, and so in our next segment, we're going to be talking about what we can do around our home to mitigate and what happens to our home. So we're going to look forward to that conversation here in a couple of minutes. We're going to take a break.
Great.
So viewers, don't go away. We're going to be talking about more specifics on fire safety. So stay with us. So we are still lucky enough to be talking to Pat McKelvey and to Rocky Infinger from Fire Safe Montana, and this is really an eye-opening conversation and a little scary. So Pat, I'm going to go to you first and ask you to talk about some of the main threats to our homes from wildfires.
Sure. We look at situations when we do assessments. I mean, we think of the physical structure. But with the movement of a lot of residential development into what, the wildland-urban interface, where that development meets the native vegetation, so to speak, for definition, that has increased tremendously. So the things that we talk about are the immediate area around the structure, and then out in concentric rings around the structure, out to even up to like 200 feet, to keep any high intensity fire away from that. Now, given that, the ember shower that comes from a fire, particularly wind-blown fire, is what burns a lot of structures down. So a good guide for that is for somebody to look any place where a snowdrift will gather, your deck, where the deck comes up to the house, the door sills, those kinds of window sills, cracks in your structure. So what we look for then is to, do an assessment. It's not rocket science. Look for overhanging limbs of a tree that may be too close. Not every tree has to go. We're not talking about living in a moonscape here, but you need to understand how those trees react in a fire situation. Mm-hmm. And then how that ember, when that tree does go, ponderosa pine, for example, does not want to burn. It will resist it like crazy. So if you've pruned and got those lower limbs up to where they're going to be above the fuel, the flame height of the fuel that's underneath, probably not going to burn. The bark exfoliates with heat, so it's doing everything it can to protect itself. But when they go, they're prolific spotters, the embers. And then you look for voids in your structure, the windowsill accumulation, as we've talked. Little things before you evacuate, if you've been evacuated, the patio furniture out on your deck, the little fuzzy thing that you wipe your feet on when you go in. All of those are fuel pits. They're just waiting for that ember drift to build up. Sometimes homes even burn down a couple of days after the main fire has moved through. That's been seen in some of the history of these assessments. So it sounds like an imposing task, but some of it is just simply looking around and thinking, what am I going to have to do there? Or we get somebody like Rocky to come out and do an assessment from your local fire department. Certainly there's people in your area that would be doing that. I would start with that if you think you need the assistance. The other then is to identify plants. Again, it's not about living in a moonscape. It's having plants that are not prone to igniting like that. Juniper, we'll always recommend that you get that at least 10, 15 feet away from the structure, not right underneath the base. And we see a lot of them that are growing right up underneath the soffit by the front door. And that's just a candle to burn the structure down. So it's really just common sense kinds of things. It's nothing earth-shattering. You can still have your greenery. There are a lot of succulent plants out. The Cooperative Extension Service or someone through your university usually they're producing lists of the kinds of plant material that's available for someone to put in to have that kind of thing. So it's, when we get started on those, it's not about a moonscape. It's about how we position what's out there. As I look at trees when we go out to see, we've got an assessment to do, and we've been asked. A lot of times I'll be standing on the deck or out with my flagging, and the owners will be saying, well, no, that tree has to stay. Well, if that one stays for whatever reason it might be, then we got to go over here and look at these two that we might have to take. And typically we look for, take the rest and leave the best is one of the models that you would want to use. And then that pruning, limbing, just treating it so that, and those are going to survive. We have all kinds of instances that we've been on fires where gosh, the guy did that and didn't even have to put an engine there because that fire went to the ground. A crew was able to handle that. The engine moved on to another structure that needed it. So, you know, it's not that difficult.
And so as a follow-on, Rocky, I'm assuming that every county or every state, maybe, I'm not sure, has the ability to have someone like you all do an assessment. So if folks go to a website, they could find resources, and if they feel like they need one, they could get one. Is that a true statement?
I would think so. You know, at least in Montana, some counties are a little bigger, a little more prepared for stuff like that. But there are places that they can be directed. Most fire departments can do those. So, you know, I guess my big thing would be contact your local jurisdiction and volunteer if you have to. But
that's a good point.
If there isn't a group, start one.
The other thing would be preparing. And whether it's your insurance, whether it's your evacuation plan, whether it's preparing around your house. Preparation is a thing, and that's a year-round thing. It never ends, or should never end.
Absolutely. So preparation is key. Well,
now is the time.
Fantastic. We are unfortunately out of time. This time went so fast, and I know there's a lot more to talk about, so we may be having you gentlemen back. So in the meantime, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I hope that you will come back again next week and tune in. And until then, stay fit, stay well, stay healthy for life with Healthy Living for Life. Take care, everyone.
Healthy Living for Life is brought to you by Mountain Pacific Quality Health in partnership with AARP Montana. We'd love to hear from you. If you have suggestions for future programs, visit our website at mpqhf.org or call us at 406-443-4020. You can also catch us on YouTube by visiting our website and clicking on the Healthy Living for Life logo. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions.